All right, good afternoon. We did lose some people from the walk, so hopefully they're okay. Alexi, what did you do to them? Okay. All right, my name's Tony. I'm the CEO of Reverb. Don't worry, I still write software. Reverb, super quick, I know there's a lightning talk. Reverb builds a platform, a system for understanding content. We apply it for users. We understand very well what people are interested in. And in the process of building this platform, which has taken 5 years of time and venture money, we ran into a challenge of connecting computers, right? So this whole idea of how do you get computers to talk to each other really efficiently and really fast so that you can develop faster was something that we had to solve. So that's what we created this thing called Swagger. So let me give you a very brief background on what it is. The basic philosophy for what Swagger is we say that services are like the new jar. So in the sense of web services or cloud services, if this is news to anyone, then you might be in COBOL programmer or using ANT for build system, right? This is not breakthrough. We just say that services are like the new jars. The functionality is in microservices, and you need to connect to them really well. And there are other languages than just Scala out there. There are things like, well, Python, Ruby, Objective-C. There's different things that you might need to connect to. So you don't want to just say, the only way that you can use our system with lots of services is if you use the same language, the same frameworks, that sort of thing. We want to say that everything can be deployed independently, and as long as they can speak to each other, everyone is happy, right? Another thing is that we say that service documentation typically sucks, right? So you can say Java docs do a good job describing an interface. The RDocs for Ruby might be okay, but when you talk about services which are in different languages and documented in different ways, they almost always suck. And if you disagree with that, raise your hand. Okay, good. I'm in the right place, thank you. Okay, so lastly, we say that communicating between them is too much work. And if you are a Ruby programmer, you probably suck at writing Go. And in order to communicate very well, you need a contract between your service and your clients, right? You don't want the front-end guy to have to make decisions based on your business logic on how your back-end works. You want things to be understandable with a contract that doesn't change, and if it does, you're a bad person, right? So the consumers want that. Service logic does not belong in the SDK. Meaning, if I am consuming your service and you say, well, if you pass a limit param, you might get an array, but if you don't, you're going to get one item, then you're making me think too hard, and I'm a developer and I have no time to do that, and so I won't use your service. I'll go to someplace else. So let's make a contract. Let's make it easy to understand. And services, how you communicate should be plumbing, right? We all don't need to be plumbers, right? So if I can make it so that you can call the services really easily, you will have better adoption and everyone's happy, right? So what Swagger does is it creates this machine-readable contract. It's discoverable by default, which means I can find it on the web. You can go find the Swagger documentation for Marvel's API comics, right? You can find it for the US government because they're available. And once they're available, you can do what you want with them, including generate clients and that sort of thing. So we're going to talk about how you connect a mobile service or mobile application to a Scala-based server with Scalatra. And you don't need to have external services. You can, so if you need an API management system or whatever, that's fine. But Swagger, by default, does not require that sort of thing. Right. I feel like I just said the same thing. It is an interface to your API, and it is a contract. And when I say bigotry-free, let me move the mouse. What I'm saying is that many people, like there is no such thing as a perfectly RESTful API. Everyone has a different opinion on how RESTful it needs to be and what it looks like. You can delete a pet with a get, post a delete or a patch, right, in your API. You can argue over what's good and what's not. I don't think a get is a good idea for deleting something, but you can. But Swagger doesn't care. It says, look, you work that out on your own time. Let's just describe it so people can use it. No server in, okay, this is how it works. We produce a piece of JSON. Once you read it, you can do different things with it. You can describe an API that you don't even own. So someone wrote one for the Facebook Graph API, someone wrote one for GitHub. You can just refer to it, and then it's a description. All right. So now we have something that is machine readable. It's everything the server can do, and it doesn't care what language or framework you're using. And now we can do things like document, which is really important. We can do code generation and client generation. I'm going to jump to here. Okay. So let's talk about Swagger and Scalatra. So Scalatra is an amazing lightweight framework for Scala. It's a micro web framework. It's written by some very passionate developers, and it has what I consider to be the best DSL for writing REST APIs. Coincidentally, it also has first-class support for Swagger, which makes it incredibly easy to add Swagger to a Scalatra-based API, and it has been tested and proven at scale. If we look at what Scalatra looks like as a REST API, you can see a very simple example here. This is a GET request for something for an event service, a pretend API service that I put together. You see at the top here, we have the content negotiation, which is injected before the request runs. There's simple routing, which is Rails-style syntax. And if you can't tell what this is a GET request against an API which takes a path parameter called event ID. And then there's simple extraction for those parameters, right? It doesn't get simpler than this. There's no routes file. There's not a bunch of magic that happens. It's a very clean and, like I said, a very concise API. And it's so light that I've run for several years now a Scalatra API on an embedded single board computer under 48 megs of RAM. Right? So you can't do that with even a Java API for JAX-RS. So Scalatra is very light and simple to use. Scalatra also will do the model or response rendering automatically. It uses JSON for S. You can see on the left-hand side, the request that came in is doing a find by ID. It's returning a single model. It's going to render it using Jackson under the hood into JSON. And on the right-hand side, we're calling a find all, which is going to return an array. Adding Swagger to Scalatra is simple. You can see the top block shows what the code looks like before there's Swagger support, and the bottom shows what it looks like with a little decoration for adding parameter descriptions and some other summary information. Once that's added, the generation of the Swagger JSON is automatic. It looks something like this. It's very simple. Notice the type extraction from a long value to an integer format int64, which is JSON schema-ish. No ugly Java annotations in this process. So this is what our framework actually looks like in Java. There's circled in red all kinds of ugly stuff. And Scalatra will extract the models. So that means that from the case classes here, we're going to not only understand that things are options, which means that they're optional in the response model. You can see on the right-hand side whether they're required or not. But notice that the type information here, start date, which is a date time, is formatted properly. So JSON for us takes care of all of that. And now we have a Swagger UI for free, which basically means that anyone can try out your API, including your boss. Or if you're the boss, then your wife can try out your API. Right? So now, I know I have to go fast because I got the hand from Jason back there. If you don't know how to write Objective-C, you can still help out your clients, your internal or external, by using a code generator. So the code generator is going to read the specification, apply some templates, and they're mustache templates. It will do type-safe conversion between the specification into Objective-C, for example. Right? Templates you can tweak, which is important. We've all seen the world of WSDL and Waddle and that sort of thing making these awful client generations. These are mustache templates. You can do whatever you want with them. For example, here, you can see the mustache syntax in there. And what we say is, it's like Burger King. You can have it your way. Make your own templates. Make them however you want. Make them for Go, and everyone will be happy. Once you have those, you can share your libraries easily. Everyone has seen something like this. Boss wants this crap tonight. I need an SDK. It's Swagger. So what? It's already done. There are other mobile frameworks, believe it or not, other than Objective-C and iOS. There's Android for some of us. Same thing. generate a client, use a template that is made for Android. And as you can see, it is very simple, very familiar call to make a request here. I'm calling my API, and I'm going to get some articles with an ID input. Some people do JavaScript too for mobile. JavaScript is very simple with Swagger as well. It's built at runtime. That's what it looks like if you're running inside of Node. It's the same thing inside of a browser. And in summary, that was very fast, but I would say that Scalatra provides the simplest DSL for REST APIs in Scala. I'll say that. It was very lightweight, minimal dependencies. And once you have Swagger embedded in it, then you will make your applications available to lots of other people. For example, all of the API providers, API management providers except for 2, support Swagger as first-class citizens, which means if you write something that produces Swagger, lots of people can use your services. And if people can use your services, you can probably make more money. Questions? Yes?
So how do you compare Spray and Scala?
How do I compare Spray and Scalatra? Spring? Spray. So I think Spray is really interesting. It's very fast. I think that it's very hard to read for myself, but I'm also quite old. So I know that there's a Swagger support for Spray, and people love it, and it's actively developed, but not by Reverb. Yes, in the blue. 2.0 of
Swagger specification.
yes, so Swagger is coming out with a second version of the specification. We've had a 1.0, 1.1, 1.2. For the last 2 years, we've been on 1.2. 2.0 is going to come out in about 4 weeks-ish, and there's some amazing things that have happened. We have probably 2,000 different developers making frameworks for Swagger. Most of them are moving into 2.0 support. And big companies such as Microsoft, Apogee, IBM, I could go through a long list of companies who are supporting and helping get Swagger into their industry, into their applications, and making it first class. So expect that to be a couple of the goals were to make it more available and simpler, to add extensions. We're having like the Strong Loop, the Node.js providers, they're implementing 2.0 support as well. So we've had a closed but very large community of people who have been contributing to the 2.0 spec about 4 weeks. Yes?
Have you had any experience with using Swagger documents to generate acceptance tests for APIs?
You know, there's a, there's a Swagger plugin for SOAP UI. I know SOAP is a dirty word around here probably, but that's a very good way to use automatic testing. Yes?
So when I think of design by contract, I usually think of invariance of preconditions and post-conditions. Is there anything in Swagger that can capture that kind of semantic, logical characteristic?
Yeah. So one of the things that Swagger doesn't do is try to describe workflow, right? So meaning like it's not a sequence-driven type specification. It's very much a request response type specification. I don't know if that helps. Any other questions? Going once? It's all open source, Apache 2, and hope you enjoy it. Oh, yes.
How would you compare the adoption to API blueprints and RAML?
So I would say if you go and look at either GitHub stars or if you go Google and look at the results, then we're at least 10 times. Sometimes some people think that there's 100 times more adoption. And there's two points to it. One is Swagger does not try to define your workflow, and if there's one thing that I'm opinionated about is that I don't know your workflow for your company. So Swagger is open whether you do design first or code first, where RAML is design first only, apiaries discussion first only. So we're not trying to do that. And I think also because it's been open sourced and we're not trying to own the stack, we're not a service provider for a Swagger as a service, it's made people like Microsoft comfortable to embed us in their next generation of tools, for example. So I think that says it. Anything else? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.